Hello, I'm Ruben Bressler, and welcome back to the Sideboard. I'm here with Phil Blechman, and he has brought Bant to the table. And before the format had really begun, people were probably, half their mind was on zombies, but then everyone sort of went, well, I want to find what the best Geist of St. Traff deck is. And this looks like it could be it, because you're also being supported by Jace. So tell me a little bit about where this deck started, how it evolved.
Sure. Actually, the deck started out as a Geist tempo deck, and it really just wanted to slam Geist on turn 3 and then just ride it all the way out to victory. So there's like main board Feeling of Dreads. I was originally running 4 Snapcaster and 4 Inaction Injunction. Just because detaining their dude and then drawing a card was really awesome, because then Geist just gets in. But then I realized as we progressed and I was playing against a lot of Jund decks that they kind of just would go over the top, and because it doesn't remove it from the table, Geist, if you run out of cards, like if you run out of tempo cards, then you kind of just are out of the game already. So, but that's where the deck started, and then it just evolved into a more control-ish sort of Geist deck.
And as I said, you're running 4 Jace, Architect of Thought. You're also running Centaur Healer on 3, which is sort of been picking up in popularity over the last couple weeks.
It's so good. The trick with Centaur Healer is with this deck, it's really low in 2 drops and really high in 3 drops. And so that was where I was kind of iffy on it. That's why I'm running 3 Feeling of Dread, because I really want to just stall out until I can get all these 3s on the table. But what's awesome about Centaur Healer is it just slows the game down enough that then that doesn't matter. So it puts you back in the running, and then when you slam a Geist, they have to leave a guy back because it's just such value. And then by that point, if you slam a Centaur Healer, it's also on curve with Restoration Angel, and that's a beating. Because everybody wants to go Thragtusk Restoration Angel, and I'm like, well, that's awesome, but it reverses your curve. So Centaur Healer is just awesome.
Instead of Thragtusks, speaking of which, you're running 1 Thragtusk, but you're also running 2 Sigarda, Host of Herons. And you were espousing the virtues of Sigarda before we were filming. Tell me a little bit about why Sigarda is so awesome.
I think Sigarda is the underrated card in the format. I know it's a young format, but I think Sigarda is, like, the fact that she flies and she's hexproof and she hoses sack outlets. So, I mean, Liliana's seeing, like, borderline play, but that doesn't matter. Tribute to Hunger doesn't matter. I mean, if anybody's running Barter and Blood, that wouldn't matter. But like the fact you can't get rid of her. Once she hits the table, you can either try and block, but that's it. Mortars doesn't hit her. Bonfire has to be huge. Any blacks, like Ultimate Price doesn't touch her. She's hexproof. It doesn't matter. The fact that she got 5 toughness and that she flies, nothing gets in her way. And then the biggest threat is really just like Angel of Serenity, but it's one, it can't touch her, and then it's a 5/6, so you can still race. Or they can just leave it back, in which case that's fine, because
you're just going to draw more things like Jace and whatnot.
If that just gives you more time, that's perfect, you know.
And so you're running a couple other. We've sort of put the spells in order from earliest game to latest game, and I've been seeing Sphinx's Revelation pop up every once in a while. Talk to me a little bit about Sphinx's Revelation, especially in a deck like this that isn't a true control deck.
One of my buddies, really good player, his name's Bryant, he told me at the beginning when he was looking at the list that he was saying that the list doesn't know what it wants to do quite yet, and I think that that's reasonably true, just because it's still tweaking it, and this is really great playtesting with it, because sometimes you'll have a Geist on the table and then top a Terminus, and that's kind of weird.
A Nombo?
But it's like, I'd put in the Terminus just because against the Lesnia decks, their guys are so big that they just overrun you, so you really want to have a contingency plan for that. But the way Sphinx's Revelation works is it's really good if the game does go long, which you want it to go to the mid game, but if it happens to go to the late game, this is just a blowout, because you gain all the life, so you time walk their turn if they're an aggro deck, and then if you draw into any of your threats, I mean, you draw into a Resto, or you draw into more gain life guys, or if you hit a Sigarda, it's really just that, like, one of that, if you hit it late game, it's awesome, but if you hit it early game, it's not so great. So I originally had 2 in the list when I was playtesting it because it was so good, but then I ended up cutting Snapcaster, because Snapcaster became more of a 4-drop, and so I cut down the Sphinx's Revelation also to 1.
Now, you say you cut Snapcaster.
I did,
but you didn't cut it entirely.
No. Best creature in the game of Magic, you have to keep some of them.
So you have 2 in the sideboard. Tell me a little about when they come in.
I'm usually bringing in Snapcaster in whenever I'm boarding in Negates or Essence Scatters, just to double as additional copies. And just because they're not mana leak, you have to, going with one or the other, if I wanted more copies of one or another, I kind of just get the option. So these are really, I think of it more of like that.
Sure.
But that's
like
why
a 3-3 split
right.
rather than a 2-2-2
yeah.
split.
So I just think that counterspells have been getting a really bad rap right now because of Cavern of Souls and all the uncounterable guys.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, the stuff that you really want to be countering in like Jund decks, or if you want to counter a Thragtusk, or if you want to counter the big spells, I actually think Essence Scatter and Negate are two really underplayed cards. And I was actually thinking about putting Essence Scatters in place of the Dissipates in the main, just because it's so creature heavy that sometimes it won me my second round.
Nice.
So.
Now, Ray of Revelation is
yes.
a card that I used to play a lot back when I played Bant Mirari's Wake before it was called Bant. But I used to play that card a ton with Cunning Wish. That card's awesome.
It's really good.
Has not really seen its day in the sun yet.
Not yet. Not yet.
But it's coming.
It's
because
coming.
Everyone's playing Detention Spheres.
Detention Sphere, O-Ring.
O-Rings. And a lot of the humans decks are running things like Bonds of Faith and Pacifism.
Or the 2/2 enchantment Spectral Flight.
Spectral Flight is also a good one. And also, hey, sometimes Crippling Blight on your Thragtusk happens. And if you can mid-combat Array of Revelation, that's very good.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to see that card.
Yeah,
However,
if I could also say the main reason why they're in there is actually against the tokens matchup.
Oh, okay,
that
sure.
tokens deck that runs all the anthems.
All the anthems, like Intangible Virtue and Favorable
Such
Winds.
value on those cards that if I was, when I was playtesting against it, I got blown out by it just because 3/3 and 4/4 flyers are just so good.
Of course.
So this was actually brought in for them instead of erases, and then it just ended up doubling as awesome against Detention Spheres and stuff like that.
Nice. Now, you were saying that your favorite card in your sideboard is your One of Saving Grasp.
My One of Saving Grasp.
So tell me about that card.
So originally when this was back at the Tempo deck, I wanted all of the ways that I could get around to keep Geist to just swing and then protect the Geist. And so what I would do is I would Geist in Saving Grasp or Geist in Cloud Shift. I originally had Cloud Shift. But then what I realized when I was changing the deck was against, I don't really have too much hate for zombies in the board because I feel like I'm prepared for them in the main. But coming in against Miracles, which I was expecting to be a big deck or a lot of control decks, they're playing nothing but Terminus and Wraths. So if I'm playing a Sigarda or a Geist, what I can do is Saving Grasp then counters 2 of the Wraths.
Nice.
So they have to tap out for Wrath, or if they have to get a Terminus, and then I can just save my card. They go, oh, I just wasted my turn tapping out for a Terminus, and then I just slam the Geist again.
Right.
So that's really for
It's a
Miracles.
nice 1-mana counterspell with another 1-mana counterspell in the graveyard.
Right.
And of course, it wouldn't be a deck with Jace if you didn't have Tameo somewhere.
That's true.
So you can sort of just morph into the Jace Tameo 1-2 punch style decks.
And Tameo is like, she's like surprisingly insane against the decks that aren't swarming the table. So you go up against Frights, you go up against any of the Jund ramp decks that are just playing like the big threat, or the Bant decks that are only playing on Thragtusk. And she's great at just tapping those guys down. And yeah, she's been doing a lot of work today.
Excellent. Well, this looks like a ton of fun. This looks like where Geist decks are going. I've seen a lot of blue-white humans, blue-white aggro style decks.
Yeah.
But I think that something like this that has a better support structure behind it, like Restoration Angel used to be able to support it in Old Delver, having another 3-drop that's solid like Centaur Healer, definitely having another... Playing second fiddle is not really what I want to be saying here, but against aggressive decks, you want the Centaur Healer.
Yeah.
And against more control-y decks, you want the Geist.
It's very much mid-range. I think Geist was really good when Delver was around because it was like a nice top end for a Delver deck because all their spells were free. But I think Geist now is still really, really good because it's such a threat on their own, and a lot of people will fear it. But I think as we progress in this format in particular, because Blue-White has a lot of bigger cards, I think they're going to have to go more towards a control shell with him.
Sure. And you know, Hexproof is pretty
so good.
If you thought it was good on a Geist of St. Traft, it might be even better on Sigarda, so pay attention to that one.
Sigarda's the nuts of the format.
Nice. All right, Phil, thank you for joining me in the
Thank you
sideboard.
very much. Appreciate it.